I once believed that love and sacrifice would always be rewarded. But then the very people I had cherished all my life turned me into a stranger under their roof. Little did I know, my departure from the beloved home would lead me into a silent betrayal and a painful awakening I had never imagined. If this story touches your heart, do not forget to follow the channel and accompany me on this journey. Perhaps, somewhere, you too have given everything only to be met with silence. Please share your feelings or your own experiences in the comments section, because every story shared becomes a small light that brightens the souls who are feeling lost. You are not alone, and your words may give strength to someone out there. It all began on a chilly March morning when Ohio was still wrapped in biting cold and mist clung to every window pane. I was sweeping dry branches in the garden when the phone rang. It was Ethan, my only son. He had not contacted me for almost a month. Ever since he married Samantha, our conversations had become increasingly brief, polite, but empty. "Hello, Mom, are you doing okay?" Ethan's voice came through, gentle but distant. I could hear the caution in his breath, as if he had thought long and hard before pressing the call button. I smiled, hiding the hollowness inside me, and replied that I was fine, that I was busy tending the garden and sorting Harold's old belongings. The truth was, I had never dared to touch his closet. Just catching a glimpse of Harold's favorite gray coat was enough to make me break down like a child. But Ethan didn't need to know that. I had long since grown used to swallowing my loneliness. There was a pause before Ethan spoke again. I could hear his hesitation through the line. "Mom, Sam and I were talking. We thought maybe you could come live with us for a while." My heart skipped a beat. Live with them? Ethan hurried to explain, "You'll have your own room. Logan and Caleb really miss you. The house is spacious too. You won't be a burden." I remained silent. The offer was unexpected and a little odd. The last time I had visited, Samantha barely spoke to me. She was always busy, either glued to her phone or disappearing upstairs. Ethan looked worn, his eyes always heavy with worry. But the image of my two little grandsons, Logan's innocent smile and Caleb's tiny hands clutching my skirt, softened my heart. Perhaps I had let my loneliness exaggerate my doubts? Maybe this was a chance to reclaim a sense of family instead of wandering alone in a house filled with sighs. "I'll think about it," I replied. For the next week, I wandered around the house like a lost soul. The photo frames on the walls grew dusty. The tea set Harold had once gifted me sat untouched on the shelf. I thought about the nights spent in front of the TV, keeping it on just to drown out the ticking clock. Finally, I made a decision. I packed some clothes into an old suitcase. Not everything, just enough for a few weeks as a trial. Before locking the door, I turned back and looked. The house stood silent, aged but still warm in its own way. I clutched the keys tightly in my hand. "Just for a little while," I whispered. The drive to Ethan's house took only 30 minutes, but every kilometer weighed heavier on my chest. When I parked outside, no one came out to welcome me. I had to knock twice before Samantha opened the door. She looked at me with a blank face. "You're earlier than expected," she muttered and turned away. No hug, no smile. The house smelled heavily of fast food and baby diapers. Toys were scattered everywhere across the floor. Loud cartoons blared from the TV at full volume. Ethan came down the stairs, carrying Caleb. He hugged me, a quick, lifeless hug, and pointed down the hallway. "We've set up a room for you." I walked into the small room. There was nothing but a half-deflated air mattress, some scattered boxes, and a broken table lamp propped up with old books. I gave a weak smile. "It's fine," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. That night, lying on the sagging mattress, I stared at the ceiling, listening to laughter echoing from downstairs. My heart was restless. A part of me already knew that what lay ahead would not be easy. But I had no idea that this journey was not just about filling an empty heart. It would teach me the most painful lesson about love, trust, and the limits of sacrifice. The first few days in Ethan and Samantha's home passed with a strange sense of displacement, as if I were an object placed in the wrong spot. I tried not to take it to heart, clearing the walkways, doing the laundry, cooking dinner, small things I thought might help ease some of their burdens. But the silence in response to my efforts grew louder day by day. I folded Logan and Caleb's robes neatly on the sofa, only to see Samantha carelessly toss them onto another chair without even glancing. I cooked dinner, a pot of hot chicken soup, just like I used to make when Ethan was young. Yet the meal was eaten in silence, each clink of spoon against bowl echoing with coldness. Samantha ate while scrolling through her phone, and Ethan worked tensely on his laptop right at the dining table. I kept telling myself perhaps they were tired, busy, under pressure. I was used to making excuses, used to bowing down, used to explaining away the growing distance. One morning, as I was running the washing machine to clean some baby towels, Samantha walked past, stopped, and said in a light but cold voice, "Mom, please don't use the washing machine during the day. Electricity is expensive." I froze, a wet towel still in my hand. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know." Before I could finish, she had already walked away, leaving me standing there, silent amidst the hum of the washing machine. After that, I started noticing the glances, the sighs, the fleeting curled lips whenever I switched on the stair lights, let the water run too long, or even when I bought a few extra groceries for the kids. And Ethan? Ethan saw it all. But my son simply turned his face away. No defense, no words of protection. Just silence, as if pretending not to see would somehow make the discomfort disappear. One evening, during dinner, Ethan spoke in a soft but firm voice. "Mom, we're struggling a bit financially. Could you help us out with the house mortgage? Just temporarily, we will repay you once things settle." I smiled weakly. "Of course, I will help." I transferred the money within that same week. Nearly half of the savings I had accumulated over many years. I told myself, this is family. This is what a mother is supposed to do. But when the next month came, Ethan cautiously brought it up again. "This month we are still stuck, Mom. Hope you don't mind if..." And the month after that, and the month after, I was no longer asked. I was assumed. Every time my phone pinged with a message from Ethan, I knew it was an invisible reminder. It's due. Gradually, I was no longer a guest. I was no longer a mother. I had become an automatic payment, a hidden part of the household machinery. One night, while clearing the dinner table, picking up crumbs scattered around, I looked at the blank wall where there should have been family photographs and felt a chill down my spine. I had entered this house carrying hope, carrying love, believing that I would be needed, cherished. But it turned out I was only needed as long as my pockets remained full. And deep inside, a doubt began to take root, a fear that the love I was offering was being measured, bargained. I just did not know then that this doubt would soon lead me to an even more bitter truth. I began to tell myself, if I could just be a little more patient, perhaps things would get better. But one night, when the house was draped in silence and I was tossing and turning on an almost deflated air mattress, a strange intuition nudged me to check my bank account. It was just a vague impulse, but it pulled me upright, as if someone had whispered in my ear, "Go and see." The numbers appeared, cold and piercing. I slid my finger and checked the transaction history. And there, tucked between the mortgage payments and utility bills, were unfamiliar names: Spin Master Gaming, Ace Bet Online, Lucky Rush. I frowned. I had never heard of these names, but just a few taps on Google gave me the answer: online gambling sites. I stared at the blue-lit screen in the darkness. My hand trembled around the phone. The money I had sent, the money I had trusted was being used to pay for the mortgage and daily expenses, had been funneled straight into invisible betting rounds, where each penny was swallowed in the blink of an eye. I snapped the phone shut as if it had burned my hand. So this was why Ethan always needed more money each month. This was why his eyes darted away every time the topic of finances came up. It wasn't because of bills. It wasn't because of any real hardship. It was because of temptation and deceit. I sat frozen at the edge of the mattress, my back hunched under the weight of this realization. Memories flooded in. The nights I stayed up late trimming the budget, the worn-out sweaters I endured for yet another winter, just to save a little more. All the sacrifices I had made. And now Ethan, the son I once cradled in my arms, the boy I once vowed to protect at all costs, had thrown that trust away into a meaningless gamble. Part of me wanted to storm upstairs, demand answers, to scream all the humiliation, all the heartbreak that was shredding my chest. But I did not. I just sat there, in the thick, suffocating darkness. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I never thought I would. Resentment toward my own flesh and blood. Not resentment over the lost money. Not resentment over being deceived. But resentment because I knew Ethan had made a choice to take advantage of me, and worse still, he felt no remorse. I stayed awake through that entire night, not out of pain, but because a decision was slowly taking shape within me. I would no longer be the one to save them. If my love was only valuable when it could be drained from my bank account, then I would rather hold on to every rupee and save myself. When the pale morning light seeped through the curtains, I knew it for certain. This trip, which I thought was a return to family, had actually been a journey towards realization. Love cannot save those who do not wish to be saved. And Ethan, at least for now, did not wish to be saved. He only wished to keep playing until there was no one left to cling to. I clasped my hands tightly, feeling the chill of my own knuckles. A new chapter of my life had just begun, and this chapter would have no place for those who treated my sacrifices as nothing but a given. The next morning, I woke up with an unusual silence in my heart. There were no longer the chaotic questions from the night before. Only a cold certainty remained, like a frozen lake in the heart of winter. I had to leave this place. I walked into the kitchen. Ethan was sitting there, drinking coffee, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. When I greeted him good morning, he just nodded without even lifting his eyes from his phone screen. Samantha didn't even bother to show up. No one asked if I had slept well or if I was feeling all right. I realized, even if I disappeared, this house would not miss a single breath. I packed my belongings in silence. A few clothes, some books, a few small keepsakes I had brought along. The room I once called the guest room now looked more like a storage shed. On the floor, beside my suitcase, there was something that made me freeze. The suitcase had already been pulled out, its zipper half undone. They had already prepared for my departure. Without a word, without a question, without a thank you. I did not know what hurt more, the shattering discovery from last night or the cold indifference of this morning. I left a short note on the kitchen table. Thank you for letting me stay. My handwriting was stiff, much like my heart at that moment. I pulled my suitcase through the living room, strewn with toys, past the pile of unwashed dishes, past the soulless cartoon blaring from the TV. No one saw me off. No one called me back. The door clicked shut behind me with a dry, hollow sound, like a full stop at the end of a chapter one had forced myself to stretch too long. My car was parked under the chilly March sun. My hands trembled as I turned the key, not from the cold, but from the surge of emotion rising in my chest. I looked back at the house one last time. All I saw were gray walls, without a trace of warmth, pulling me to stay. The road home was lined with oak trees stripped bare of their leaves. I drove slowly, each kilometer pulling me farther away from those years of blind devotion. When the familiar gate appeared before me, it felt like I had crossed an entire ocean. My little house, the place that had witnessed so many seasons of love, loss, and growth, still stood there. Not grand, not perfect, but still mine. A place no one had the right to take away. A place where I did not have to bow my head to be accepted. I opened the door. The scent of old wood, paper from books, and a faint trace of the cologne Harold once used filled the air, pulling at my heartstrings. But this time, I would not allow myself to collapse. I walked straight into the living room, pulled open all the curtains, and let the cold sunlight flood in. I picked up my phone, logged into my bank account, and within a minute, canceled all the standing transfers to Ethan. Without warning, without explanation, I locked the supplementary card I had foolishly given him for emergencies, deleted all linked accounts, changed my email and banking passwords, even called a locksmith to change the house locks. Each small act felt like pulling out a thorn I had allowed to bury deep inside me for years. That evening, as I sat on my old armchair, I looked around the house, at the dusty photo frames, the half-finished books, the teacup stained with a golden ring on the table, and for the first time in months, I exhaled deeply. Not because all the pain had disappeared, not because I had completely let go, but because finally I had placed myself back at the center of my own life. I no longer wished to save anyone else before saving myself. I had chosen peace, even if the price was separation. And this was only the beginning. The days after I cut all financial ties with Ethan passed in silence. At first, there were hesitant messages. "Mom, are you doing well?" And then, "Mom, you must be busy. Call me when you are free." I read every line but did not respond, because I knew if I allowed myself to soften even once, everything would return to the same old cycle. Then the messages shifted to half-hearted apologies. No mention of money, no mention of gambling. Just vague words. "I miss you, Mum. Logan is asking where Grandma is." I miss my grandchildren too. My heart ached whenever I thought of Logan's smile, Caleb's bright eyes. But love, if not protected by boundaries, is nothing more than meaningless sacrifice. I waited patiently because I understood if Ethan truly wanted to change, pain would have to be his first teacher. Not the money I sent, not the unconditional comforting hugs. And then what I had been waiting for finally happened. One late afternoon, as the sun had set behind the silent rows of houses, my phone rang. This time I picked up. Ethan's voice came through. No more urging, no more evasion. Only bare exhaustion. "Mom, I have made a complete mess. I am trying to make things right." He shared that the house was about to be repossessed by the bank. That Samantha had started cutting down expenses, but the trust was gone. That the children were asking why they had to wear old coats, why the house was so cold at night. And then, after a long hesitation, Ethan said something I had not heard from him in many years. "I need help, but not money. I need you to teach me how to live again." I sat frozen, tears streaming down without me even realizing. Not from pity, not from anger, but from knowing that this moment, fragile, honest, and filled with pain, was the final chance for Ethan to step out of the darkness he himself had created. I did not reply immediately. I told Ethan, "If you truly wish to change, I will give you the tools. But only that. Whether you climb up or fall down again will be your responsibility." The next day, we met at a small cafe near my house. Ethan looked different, thinner, eyes sunken, but within them, a glimmer I thought I would never see again. Acceptance of his own faults. I laid out a file in front of him, a budget plan, a list of support groups for gambling addicts, a list of part-time jobs suitable for a single father schedule. Ethan was stunned to see it. "Mom." I raised my hand, cutting him off. No promises, no oaths, only action. We signed a small commitment, just a piece of paper, but to me, it weighed more than any legal document. Ethan committed to taking responsibility for his life, one day at a time. I promised to help just once, to pay off the overdue amount to save the house for the children. After that, Ethan would have to swim, fall, and stand up on his own. I would no longer be the soft cushion he could fall onto forever. As we left the cafe, Ethan turned back and hugged me, a real hug without pretense, without calculation. I will not disappoint you again," he whispered. I gently squeezed his shoulder, half trusting, half cautious, because I knew Ethan's journey had only just begun, and my journey, learning to love without losing myself, had just begun as well. The agreement between Ethan and me was no miracle. There was no instant change, no beautiful endings overnight, only hard work, slow, clumsy, but real. In the first few weeks, Ethan kept his commitment. He took a night shift job at a small delivery company, saving every rupee. Every evening after work, he would send me a short expense report by email, every item carefully recorded, hiding nothing. I did not reply. I simply read and acknowledged, because now Ethan no longer needed hollow praises. He needed conditional trust, recognition earned through persistent effort, not through tears or promises. As for Samantha, change did not come easily. She did not participate in the recovery process. No companionship, no encouragement. In her eyes was resentment, not only towards Ethan, but perhaps towards the entire world. Yet I did not interfere, for I had learnt the hardest lesson. Everyone must choose how they face life. One Saturday afternoon, as I was sewing old handkerchiefs to sell at my small shop, Ethan called. "Ma," he said, his voice steadier than before, "I have found a small apartment near Logan and Caleb's school. The rent fits my current income. I want to move out." I froze mid-stitch, feeling as if a door had just swung open inside me. "Are you sure?" I asked calmly. "I'm sure," Ethan replied. "I can't fix everything here. I can't change while living among old wounds. I need a fresh start for me, for the children." I nodded, even though he could not see me. "Then I am proud of you." The next week, I helped Ethan move his essentials. A simple mattress, a few old blankets, the dining table I once thought of throwing away. Nothing luxurious, nothing new, but enough to begin. As we carried the last box into his little flat, Ethan turned to look at me, his eyes as clear as when he was a small boy. "Ma," he said, "thank you for not rescuing me too soon." I simply smiled, gently patting my son's shoulder, feeling as if I was peeling away layers of burdens I had unknowingly wrapped around myself for years. The day Ethan finally left the old house, Samantha did not come out to see him off. Only Logan and Caleb clung to his legs, chattering excitedly about the new home. Looking at the children, I saw myself, years ago, building a small home from nothing but faith and a brave heart. That night, returning to my own home, I sat alone by the windowsill, watching the silent stars scattered across the late spring sky. I had not saved Ethan the old way, by throwing him a lifeboat so he could keep drifting. I had done the harder thing, letting him learn to swim, to struggle, to find the shore on his own. And because of that, this time, change truly mattered. I still missed the children, still occasionally sent Ethan a short message of encouragement. But I never returned to that old cycle, where love meant sacrificing myself completely. I chose to love with boundaries, with dignity, with light. My story has no perfect ending. Life is never that simple. But under that quiet, gentle night sky, I knew one thing. I had found myself again. And this time, I would never lose myself again. Thank you for staying with me until the very last line of this story. If the journey I just shared made you reflect on your own life, about boundaries, love, or the rebirth that comes after brokenness, please leave a comment below. I would truly love to hear your story. And do not forget to like, share, or subscribe to the channel if you wish to continue following real stories about growth and courage. You deserve to be heard, to be understood, and to move forward.